This is Legends territory, best conversations with your favorite former players. And if you want more info on them, hit up baseballalumni.com, run by the MLB Players Alumni Association. Scott Braun Erik Kratz. Also, if you're watching this and you want to listen to it on the go, Apple, Spotify, type in Legends territory. And now let's bring in a 14-year former big leaguer, a lot of time with the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, some Yankees action, 4-time All-Star, Gold Glover, Silver Slugger, and a Canadian who was a force in this game for a long time and a super athlete too, who started at another position. Russell Martin joining us on LT right now. Russell, how you doing? And how's retired life?
Doing good. And thanks for the intro, man. Appreciate it. Life is good, man. Just been hanging out, golfing, hanging out with the family, and just enjoying this nice Arizona weather lately.
This is one of those times, I don't do this often, where the crowd that's listening to this on the pod should just tune in to the YouTube show, even if they listen to it straight through, you know what I'm saying? Where they look back, and if it's like you're having a rough day, like just look at the backdrop for Russ and just see like the chill pool scene. It looks like like a Corona commercial or a beer commercial or something like that. You got like the nice blue sky with just a light cloud action in the background. It's probably like 82 degrees. So am I right?
It's in the shade. In the shade, it feels like 82. It's still pretty hot out here in Arizona, though. It'll probably get up to like 100 something later.
Ooh.
But, yeah. So you find the AC and you find the shade over here.
One of the things that Scotty didn't hit on with your whole 14 years, all that stuff. You know how many years you didn't make the playoffs?
That's a good question. I think I went to the playoffs like 10, 11 times or something like that.
So
pretty good.
Right, 11 out the Pirates run too. Right?
11 out. He didn't catch it. He made it, and this is
the whole Pirates.
This is what I'm getting at, and I tell people this all the time. You know, as a catcher, I feel like you have a way of influencing teams' trajectories, how they're going to go in their season, and to make the playoffs. At one point, you were 9 of your first 11 seasons, you were in the playoffs as the starting catcher. To me, I say congratulations. I want to know from your standpoint what goes into that. What is that like? Because it just doesn't happen. You can't just be good looking and get into the playoffs.
It's obviously it's everybody plays a part in it, right? The whole team, like everybody's got to play a part in it. At the catching position, you're playing. You're kind of like a quarterback and kind of like an offensive coordinator at the same time, right? So, you kind of got to know your personnel, and you just build that relationship with the pitchers where they just have confidence in you, and if they feel like you're back there and you want to win as much as them and you care about what they're doing out there, you get the best out of them, and that's really all you're trying to do as a catcher is just whatever the guy has that day, just trying to get the best out of them. And it's on days where they don't have their best stuff. If you can kind of get them through a decent start and keep your chance, or keep your team in the game, those are the difference, because every win matters. Every pitch matters. Like the difference in a ball game can be one pitch or like one ball that's called a strike instead of a ball. Like that's kind of how baseball is. Like sometimes it boils down to one pitch, and the way I was, I would fight for every single pitch out there. That's just the way I was. I played the game to win, and I think every single one of my teammates always knew that. Like it was team first, and just winning, and that's what I was all about. And hopefully I rubbed off the right way on guys, and we just every team I've been on, that's just kind of like it was always, the importance of winning. And also, like, when you're on a team that's in contention, you never really have that, like, just playing for your own stats, and it gets kind of ugly too. And that's not the fun baseball to play. The baseball you want to play is like when you're in contention in August or, in September, and all the games matter. And it's easy to play the game that way. It's easy to play to win. It's when you're out of it, like midsummer, and then you got to go to the field. It's a drag, and I was fortunate enough that not have to do that too much. But yeah, man, like being a catcher, you have an impact on every single pitcher that's out there, And when those guys trust you, it just makes your job that much easier.
Yeah, you cared about your ABs too, not just the pitches. That like Russ would argue about pitches when he was hitting, and then he would argue about pitches behind the dish. And I remember some umpires, they would just be like, "Man, this dude is arguing both sides." But
frowned upon. It's frowned upon.
It's frowned upon. But you dug into it, and I have to say, all that to be said, two dudes that I think are, one is going to be in the Hall of Fame. Another one that's still in the trajectory of going to the Hall of Fame, two absolute competitors said the same thing about you. If there was a catcher, because I'd always go to new teams all the time, tons of different teams, and I'd ask them, like, the studs, like, who did you love throwing to the best? CC Sabathia and Gerrit Cole both said Russell Martin. And he's like, I could care less what pitch he called. He said, if he called it, I agreed with it. There were some times where they were like, they both said this, and it was at two different times. CC at one time and Gerrit at another time. They were like, I don't believe in that pitch, but if it's Russ back there, he's going to either argue with me if I don't throw it, or he's going to argue with the umpire if he doesn't call the pitch. So it was crazy. It was crazy that they both, two elite all-star pitchers, said the same thing about you.
That's funny. That's a huge compliment. But yeah, man, it just the competitive spirit, and it's so funny because off the field I'm completely different, like it's just when it comes to competition, there's just something that, this takes over me and I just become this lunatic that just, just craves to win and wants to win and just battles through anything. And then off the field, I'm kind of like, a lot smoother, and I've had so many teammates who were like, dude, I thought you were a dick, man. Like playing against you, like you'd walk up to the plate, you don't even say hi. And it's like, and honestly, it wasn't on purpose. I was just so in the zone or thinking about like the next pitch to call or who's on deck and like, all those things that are going through your mind when you're a catcher. The last thing I'm thinking about is saying hi or trying to have a conversation with somebody. That's and it wasn't because I was trying to be a dick or whatever. I'm just it just focused, right? And then guys were like, dude, you're not who I thought you were, like once they get to know me or whatever. And it's kind of funny, but I've gotten that quite a bit.
Well, with that being said, you've had your time with the umps explaining yourself. Do you see a world where that won't exist for arguing balls and strikes? I'm sure you've kept up with the news that, we could have either a total ball strike automatically called by a machine system, or at the very least, a challenge system. Seems to be what a lot of players are buzzing about this year. Like, yo, just give me a chance on some of those real bad ones where the whole team is screaming and we can just go to the video board and someone's right and someone's wrong. Like, have you kept up with that? And what would you want?
Yeah. I like the challenge. The challenge system would make sense, because at least you're kind of like in tennis where like, if it's like a borderline pitch and you get your chance and it's a crucial part of the game, you don't want the umpire or an umpire's mistake dictating, the difference between somebody's, season or whatever. So it actually would take heat off the umpires a little bit, which I'm sure they wouldn't mind. But to go to go and say we want the computer to dictate, all the balls and all the strikes, I think that would take away a little bit from just like the human aspect of the game, where like if you're watching a game and the umpire, like you don't like his zone or whatever, as a fan, like you can yell at him and like, it just blow off some steam that way. But if it's a computer, like, what are you going to yell at a computer? Like, people are, it's going to be weird, like it's going to completely just take away the pulse of the game, I feel like. But the challenge on the other hand is, if you're hitting and it's a big situation and the ball, like it's a called strike and it's a ball, you challenge. And I kind of like that. I think that could be a cool addition to the game of baseball. And then at the same time, it still keeps the, the umpire involved. And it also on the catching side, you don't want just, anybody behind the, you don't just want like a DH behind the plate that's just, knocking the ball down and it's not going to be fun to watch. Like one of the most fun things to watch is to watch somebody that can receive the ball well behind the plate. It's one of those things where you don't even realize it, but if you put somebody back there that's, just boxing the ball out of the strike zone, and then you see somebody like, Austin Hedges or whoever is like really, really good at it, it's fun to watch those guys catch the baseball, and it makes it fun to watch. So I wouldn't want to lose, that aspect of the game. I feel like it would be tough to watch, catchers that aren't, caring about receiving the ball.
Yeah, for your pitcher. I was gonna lead you right into that, and you did it perfectly. Do you feel like, because I ran into a lot of arrogant catchers who claimed it, and I always said, I feel like I know who it is, because people will say, oh, Tyler Flowers was the guy who brought receiving in, and I was like, I think Tyler Flowers was the one to bring in the one knee down. Do you feel like you were the guy that brought receiving into the game because you were really good at it and people couldn't understand why you were really good at it?
I'm not going to say that I'm the one. I think throughout the history of the game, it's just now that you can measure it now, right? And I think the timing of me, like, I always cared about my receiving, and I perfected it by watching guys like Molina and watching other guys who were good at it too, and I would just find things that they do and try to apply it to my game. And but I think just the timing of it becoming something that you can measure, that's why you can associate, well, like, Russell was good at it when they started to so, like, it's not true that I brought it in. It's just something that I recognize and something that I wanted to work on. And they started measuring it while I was playing, and I was probably one of the guys that was better at it. But I think throughout the history of the game, there's been guys who've been good receivers. They didn't measure it, back then like they do now. But if you're, and it's just, you're trying to get as many strikes as possible for your pitcher. And I think like most catchers who've caught, that's what they're trying to do when they're back there, right? And so I wouldn't go to say like I'm the one that brought it in, though. I think I just got lucky in the sense that they started measuring it while I was catching.
And you were really good at it. But were you miscast? Were you too athletic to be a catcher? Like, should you have been a shortstop like you were on the Canadian, or you wanted to be on the Canadian team?
I mean, I was always a shortstop at heart, and ever since I was a kid, and I got converted, and just being an athlete, I think was probably the what got me into the catcher's position. And then I think being with the Dodgers, and they had Adrian Beltre at third base, and he looked like he was going to be the guy for 20 years over there. So they're like, you don't really fit at third base over here. Let's see how those feet and those quick hands and the strong arm, work behind the plate. And I actually fell in love with the position because, I mean, you're so busy behind the plate. There's so many things going on. There's like the blocking component, there's a receiving component, and there's just, game calling. And that's just on the defensive side, and then, so it's like, and you're involved every single pitch. And then, after going to that, so after my first year of pro ball, after rookie league, I went to Instructs, and I got converted there. And I had John Debus, who I think was a bullpen coach for a little bit for Terry Collins and with the Mets, and then I think he went to Japan and then came back. But he was one of those guys that would just sit with me, and we would just watch. Behind home plate, they'd put like the screen that you put behind second base during BP, and we'd sit right behind the catcher, and we'd just talk about game calling, what pitch to call, and so it just kind of opened up a whole new part of the game that I didn't really knew existed until that point. And he's really the reason. He showed me like the foundations of of catching, and the importance of, besides all the like the physical things you do, is like the mental part of it, and how to navigate your way through a baseball game. Like, those are the things that are hard to measure as a catcher, and that are most important. How to call a game, what to call. There's no book. There's no really right or wrong, right? It's just like, it's almost like you're like dancing with your pitcher, and you're trying to figure out what's working that day, what he likes. Of course, now there's so much data, and and you can work and you just go with the numbers. But at the same time, you do have to use your intuition a little bit and trust your gut sometimes. So I think there needs to be like a balance of using the proper data and everything, like all the information you're getting. But at the same time, you need to trust that gut and trust your instincts out there. And and that's what scares me a little bit about baseball nowadays. It's like everything is measured and it's all you just use the math. But like there are times where like there's veteran hitters out there that'll make an adjustments. They'll change where they're standing in the box and they'll sit on pitches and it's just like even though let's say he's batting under 100 with a slider, well, if you throw a slider and you throw it for a strike and the guy's sitting on it, he's going to put a good swing on it. I don't care what the numbers say. You could be in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, somebody that wasn't in trouble, we both got drafted the same year. You in 2002 out of Chipola, I think.
Chipola. Yeah.
Chipola Junior College. Okay, so I was with the Blue Jays. You were with the Dodgers. And when I found out that I thought you were 2004, but when I found out it was 2002, my mind started just writing down names of dudes that were in that minor league system, from Mike Nixon, James Loney, Greg Miller, who never made it. You had Juan Guzman at shortstop. You had Andy LaRoche. You had, who else did I put down? Delwyn Young.
Delwyn Young.
Was Reggie Abercrombie on that team, or was he not on?
He was there too. What a freak athlete he is.
So all those dudes, and you have the highest WAR. You had the most successful career in the big leagues. Did you know that at that time? That's what was going to happen?
No. I mean, as a 17th round pick, you're just hoping to get a taste of the big leagues. And there was so much talent and the thing about when you're in the minors, or at least when I was playing, like you don't know how good the next level is. Like, of course you want to be confident, but like you don't know how good the pitching is. Like if you're going from rookie ball, then you go to A ball, like you don't know until you get there. So you don't really know how you're going to perform. And it's like you like to think that you're going to be able to compete and get to the next level. But like, and it's just, and there's a progression there. And it's crazy how baseball, it takes longer at baseball than like most other sports. Like rarely are you going to see somebody go from college like straight to the big leagues. If that happens, like that's insane to me. And it's just like level by level, you keep getting better, you acquire knowledge, you work on things and it's just like, and in every level you can see that like everybody's better. But the thing that helped me is at every level, I felt like the umpires got better too. And I've always had good plate discipline. And like, that's where like that part of my game, the more I progressed, the more that part of my game became relevant. So I felt like my hitting got better as the umpiring got better too. Strangely.
Now, throughout that time that you guys were all coming up together, those guys, and I'm sure I was missing a couple other dudes. I mean, there was just some names that started popping in my head. I'm like, Jiminy Christmas.
Edwin Jackson was there.
I forgot that. EJ was there too.
Yeah.
Golly. Anyway, like
there's so many. There's so many. It was insane.
And
Chad Billingsley.
Chad Billingsley was there too. Broxton. Yep. Jonathan Broxton was there. So anyway, all that to say, you guys just kept winning championship after it was like Vero Beach. I think you guys either won it or you were close. Jacksonville, you guys won it. Like, did that set you up for all of your success that we talked about earlier in the big leagues? Winning in the minor leagues, I think, is important. And you guys did it so well. And now, look at what happened at your entire career. You were winning and going to the playoffs.
Well, I think what helps is when you come up with like a core group and that group kind of moves up into the minors together and then you get to the big leagues together, it's it's less expensive for the team because you get young talent, you don't have to spend X money on free agents and stuff. And so when you have that core come up and it's like a core of young guys, you build around them and then you go get a couple pieces that you need. Well, that's when your team is going to be pretty strong. And the teams that have been really good at that are some of the smaller market teams. They have to be good at it. But when you're in a big market and then you do that, then it's like, you you know you're going to be good. But so I think part of it is just obviously like you expect to win when you're used to winning, and when you bring that, it just follows you wherever you go. So I do agree with what you're saying is that's all we knew. You know, we came up together. We battled through the minor leagues. We won quite a bit, and then that's just kind of becomes part of your DNA, and it's what you expect when you go out there. And we kind of just took it to the next level, and there were some growing pains. I feel like we had a good year in '06, and then '07 we didn't play as well, but then in '08 and '09 with the Dodgers we made it to the playoffs, and in 10 I got hurt and we had another bad year, but yeah, there's a lot of guys that had some pretty good careers that came out of that group.
So you made it to the playoffs every year, and you're also a testament of how freaking tough it is to win a World Series. Which year do you feel like? Which year would you feel? Not to bring up old wounds, I just scratched at a scar, but it's real.
Fresh. He just retired.
I know. I just scratched at he's younger than me, so he's just now getting into this realm of retirement life. But which is it? Like which year was the year where you were like, there's just no way we didn't win the World Series that
Man,
year?
honestly, my last season in 19 with the Dodgers, I wasn't even like the everyday guy, but I felt like that team was unbelievable. Like, and then we got beat by Washington, but that was the one where I felt like we had like a super team, right? Like, like the crazy squad, But all the other years, I felt like it was a battle. I remember having battles with the Cardinals, having battles with the Phillies. Like those teams are always tough in the playoffs. They were so just every bit as gritty as we were, and they just found a way. They just they got that big hit at the right moment, and that's kind of how the playoffs are. It's not always necessarily the best team on paper that's going to win. It's kind of like the hottest team and who puts it together at the right time. But I do remember one moment, my first playoff experience playing against the Mets. I hit a double, but I hit a double into a double play, and it's the weirdest play that I've ever been a part of. I think it's my first at bat, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the series. I hit a ball to right field off the wall. Sean Green's in right field, and it's kind of one of those balls where it's like inside out, and you don't know if it's going to carry enough. Is he going to catch it? Like, anyways, he plays it off the wall perfectly, dots a strike into the cutoff man, and then at that point, I think Jeff Kent and JD Drew are on the base, and like JD Drew's like going to tag up at second base. Kent is like right next to JD Drew at second base because he was on first base. And then the ball just caroms off the wall right into Sean Green, fires to the cutoff guy. The cutoff guy makes a relay at home. And like Jeff Kent's just like running with his head down, and JD gets tagged out at home. And then like 4 strides later, LaDuca's standing at home plate, and like he's already fist pumping because he got the one out at home. And then the next guy comes in, Jeff Kent gets tagged out, double play at home plate, and I'm standing on second base. I'm like, what the heck just happened, dude? Like, I hit a ball off the wall, we get no runs, and there's 2 outs now. And then we end up getting a run, but it was just like it was just such a deflatable moment, like it's your first inning in the playoffs, and you hit into a double play, 2 guys out thrown at home plate. It was crazy, man.
Legends Territory fam, we want to remind you all about our partnership with Shady Rays, premium polarized shades that will not break the bank. How you doing? And if you want to look as good as Erik Kratz, you can. And it is not going to cost you a boatload. It's a big reason why we've partnered up with them. And also, they take care of the people, Kratzy, because you're not the kind of guy that loses stuff too often, I'm going to imagine, right?
No, never.
But you break a thing or two. You're kind of big. You've got a little clumsiness to you, right?
Yes. I will take these off, and one of the arms will just snap off, and kind of makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I'm really strong, but also makes me feel good because I know the boys are going to take care of me and get me another pair.
That is very correct. It's the most insane protection in all of eyewear, every pair of sunglasses backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even the first day that you get them, if you're clumsy like Kratz and you're like, damn it, and you're like, oh man, they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. So you can wear them and feel good about it and feel clumsy about it and not worry about it. So right now, the best deal of the season is available for you only if you are in the Foul Territory fam. They are giving out their best deal if you go to shadyrays.com and use the code FOUL, FOUL, for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people.
I want you to tell me what you were thinking after you heard Cueto, Cueto. Take us from there.
That was crazy. That one goes to the fans. They totally got in his dome, and you could just tell that it was one of those moments where the city hasn't seen a playoff game in like 18 or 20 years or something like that. So and everybody put their black shirt on, and there's a sea of black in the crowd, and then Cueto, I think at that point already gave up one home run, so he's probably feeling like a little rattled. So I step up to the plate, and the crowd just starts chanting his name, Cueto, Cueto, and just he's playing with the ball in his glove, and he's about to get on the mound, and he drops the ball as the fans are chanting his name, and then everybody starts laughing, and I get out of the box, and I'm like, that shit's kind of funny, you know what I mean? And it kind of just like, I step out the box and just take like a nice easy breath. I'm like, like, all right, like it just kind of gave me like a relaxed feeling. So I get back in the box, get snap back into it. Next pitch, he kind of throws a cutter that really doesn't do much, and I put a good swing on it, and then you can just hear the roar. And honestly, when I hit that ball, I wasn't sure that I got enough of it. And I felt like just like the vibrations of the crowd and everything going on, maybe a little bit of adrenaline too, played a factor in it. But the ball just finds its way over the fence, and we add to our lead, and that's kind of like the rest is history. But like that chanting moment, it's all about the crowd, and it's just it's like, I don't know, it's like a minute clip, but it's really cool to watch.
We need that.
I got goosebumps listening to you talk about it, just because I see your face like changing, and how like just that moment, and like you're in it, and you talk about like the vibrations. People don't understand that kind of thing in playoffs. Like, yes, in the stands you feel it, but when you're on the field and you can't hear anything, but there's noise, is wild. And to have hit that home run in that environment has to be something for you that's like, I'm jealous.
It was unbelievable.
And you hit 2 homers that game, right?
Yeah, I hit another one later in the game.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I had a good game, man. It was, that was a fun experience, man. But just that first home run though, and even just like before the game, like just making my way to the bullpen, it just you're jogging on the field, but like it feels like you're jogging on air. Like it's just the energy. I don't know how to explain it, but it just gets completely transferred. When the people are cheering for you, like you can feel it and you can use it. And when they're cheering against you, it's like the wind's in your face and you're trying to run against the wind. Like that's kind of how I can explain it. Like there's one where like when the fans are with you, it's like the wind's at your back, and then the other way around is like the wind's right in your face and you're trying to battle that.
Yeah.
You don't see the wind, but it's the same thing with that energy coming from the fans.
So with that being said, because I've been big on this for years, and I think this is starting to pick up traction even on social media and just from fans, do you believe in fans giving more credit and benefit of the doubt and positive boost to players when they're struggling? So 2 easy examples this year. Trey Turner, we sat down next to him about a month and a half after that, and he has been on fire since. And Kratz goes, tell me that's not like the reason why you've been swinging the hot bat now. And he's like, that is the reason for real. He's like going through it for a while, feeling the contract on his shoulders, and then delivers. And it's a city that would love to just give it to you, and they've done it for years, and they just took a completely different turn. Do you buy into that, where like fans should actually think about that? You could positively impact your team more than you think.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, Philly fans are notorious for being tough fans, um, but at the same time, it's even more gratifying when you're playing well and then they're cheering for you. Um, but yeah, when you're struggling, like that's when you really need your home fans to kind of like rally around you, instead of just like kicking you while you're down. Because it's tough, man. When you're struggling, you're going to the field. Like it's just there's nowhere to hide in baseball. Like your numbers are on the big ass scoreboard. Like you're walking to the plate, and you're like, man, I'm not even hitting my weight right now. Like this is terrible, dude. And it's even worse when it's early in the season. When it's mid season or whatever, it's like you can kind of like it gets disguised a little bit, but like you start the season 1 for 25, which I feel like I've done like multiple times. It's like you're hitting like 25, 025. You're like, oh my God. And every time you go to the plate, you're like, dude, I suck right now. You know what I mean? The home team should just like not put the stats up sometimes for guys. I feel like they'd be better off so the fans don't see it.
No doubt. No, I can appreciate that. So you compare, like, I like, we need to clip what you just said about like going against the wind or the wind is with you, because you can't see it, but it is, you hit that perfectly. So I want you to compare that year. I think that was 13 in Pittsburgh and 15 in Toronto, which I'm sorry that I have a ring. I have a ring from the Royals in 15, but I just had to put that in there. But
yeah,
compare the difference, because you're talking about an indoor stadium, and there were so many things in that, like throwing the ball back, it hitting.
yes.
Was it Chu? Was it Chu that
Yeah,
was
Sin Chu. Crazy. That
compare
inning
them.
was they're very similar. Very similar because both teams hadn't made the playoffs in forever. Um, and then so like you get like this crazy energy from fans who are just so hungry for the playoffs. And that's where the similarity is like this whole like one was in Pittsburgh where the city would like the resurgence of like baseball being a thing in Pittsburgh, and then they said it was the same thing in Toronto. The difference between Pittsburgh and Toronto, you have the whole nation behind you. So we were going like to Minnesota or Seattle and even Cleveland. We'd go on the road, and it felt like we were having home games. It was nuts. Um, and then fast forward to the playoffs, like that series against the Rangers, where that one inning, and then the bat flip heard around the world. People remember the bat flip, but like there could be two completely different stories. And thank God for Jose Bautista for clutching up and hitting that homer, because earlier in that inning, I think we lose the lead. I'm throwing the ball back to the pitcher. There's a guy on third base, and it's one of those things that happens like once in a lifetime, and it's not even really a baseball play. It's just kind of unlucky. Um, Sin Chu's like fixing his sleeve, and he just kind of throws his hand up. And as he throws his hand up, I'm throwing the ball back to the pitcher, and it just glances off his hand, and it's a live ball. But at the umpires at first, they call dead ball. So the guy goes back to third, and then the crew chief gets everybody together. And a couple of minutes go by, and they're like, you know what, guys, like it's a live ball. The run scores. Well, at this point, the fans in Toronto, who they're just like the energy level could not be any higher, right? It's like they haven't seen a playoff game in a long time. They're pissed. They're throwing, all the beer bottles, like everything is just getting thrown onto the field, where it gets kind of scary. And like there's like fans that are close to like the home dugout and the away dugout, like there's families and kids there. It's like they actually on the microphone, like through the stadium, they're like, fans, like we're gonna have to forfeit this game if you don't stop. So everybody stops. They pick up all the beer cans and everything. So this is like 30 minutes, right? And we get out of the inning, and we're still in the game or whatever. And then the next half inning, like something crazy happens. One of the best shortstops, defensive shortstops in the game, makes a couple errors. I get on base. Somebody else, hits like a ball off the off their freaking hands, basically, falls in. We score a run somehow. And you can kind of and then we bunt somebody over. Beltre throws to Elvis at third. He drops the ball. Like, it was just like, and when we talked about energy and how it can affect a player, it's like, well, like those, Elvis probably never felt like himself for that inning, after making that one mistake. And the fact that it's in the playoffs, that's probably just what like heightens that feeling of like, like not being able to digest the arrow and get through it. It's just like it just stays stuck, inside of him. And then, a couple batters later, Jose comes up and just crushes this home run, and the whole stadium just goes crazy. The stadium's shaking. Like, as you're watching on TV, like the cameraman is his camera shaking because the stadium's shaking. And then kind of like the rest is history, like the whole place went nuts. And I heard ESPN say, or some post on Instagram where like they should make a 30 for 30 on that inning alone, because that was a crazy ass inning.
Yeah, I mean Ryan Goins dropping the bunt down, CC, Colabello, like everyone rolling out of the dugout, possible fights, and nobody can hear. Dyson's out there talking. At what point, whether any time of your Toronto, we just talked about 2 significant plays in an inning. At what point were you like, yes, like these are my people, these are my Canadian people? Was it when they were throwing beer bottles onto the field? Was it when you walked to the stadium and like you could feel the energy in the city? At what point were you like, these are my people? Because I remember when you signed, I was over in Japan on the MLB All-Star Tour, and Sal Butera was like, oh my gosh, we just signed Russell Martin. And I remember DeMarlo Hale was on the trip, and he goes, oh my gosh. He goes, we're going to be really good. And I was like, wow, the rich get richer. We had just gone to the World Series, lost in Game 7 with the Royals. And, you guys, we ultimately, played you then in 15, but you guys were priming yourself. So was that the moment when you were like, yeah, like I'm coming home? What was the moment where you were like, these are my people, I'm going to win this for my country?
I mean, man, as soon as I signed with Toronto, it was one of those moments where, like, I mean, growing up in 92, 93, like as a kid, I forget how old I was, but it was like, I just like, you start dreaming of like, man, one day, it'd be sick to put on like the Blue Jays uniform. So, as soon as I signed with the Blue Jays, from that point on, it was like, man, it would be sick to, to bring a championship back home. But the Royals had to get in the way of that and just kill my dreams. But like, we honestly, we thought we had a shot, but I mean, your guys' bullpen was just lights out. Like there wasn't much hard contact after the 6th inning. If you guys had the lead, man, it was like, it felt like it was 6-inning games and you had to have the lead before the 6th inning, or else it was just like shutdown mode. You know what I mean? Like you guys were and defensively too, like just yeah, you guys had that grit component, man. It was just, built for the playoff kind of. But yeah.
You guys had the lineup. You guys could hit, but I want to talk about the hit at second base that Jose took from Rougned. Now,
yes.
You rewatch that. You rewatch the video. My buddy was on the Rangers as a coach, blew his hamstring out, running out there. Like, it was full tilt. Where were you in that? And I know you saw it coming, but where were you in that whole scuffle scrum?
I was in the middle of the scuffle, but that brings you my proudest moment of our Canadian fans is when I went to the field during the playoffs, and there was a sign in the outfield that said, we rather get punched in August than get knocked out in October. And that was the sign. That was the sign they had in the outfield. And I was like, that's clever. But I still wouldn't want to get like squared up like Jose did, because Rudnett, man, he squared him right in the jaw. Jose was lucky that he was wearing his mouthpiece, because that was as clean as a right hand I've seen in any brawl in the history, of the game. Like it was just, obviously like there was a little bit of element of surprise in it. Like, but I mean, when you're in striking distance, you gotta protect yourself at all times, right? And then, so we get fast forward to the middle of that was a nice brawl. That was there was some all kinds of action. Um, I remember, man. I feel bad because um, Jeff Bannister, who was the bench coach in Pittsburgh, I'm in the middle of the scrum, right, and somebody puts their hands around me from behind and trying to grab me, and they're like, "Run, run!" And I'm like, you never know what's going to happen. I turn around, I grabbed it was a sweater. I just grabbed the sweater and I turn around, and as I'm letting go, I'm like, dude, that's my guy. Like that's my bench coach, man, and from Pittsburgh, who's the manager for the Rangers at the time. And like next thing you know, I just get like crushed. I get crushed. I get speared from behind, and it was funny enough. It was Dyson.
Oh
It
yeah.
was it was Dyson who grabbed me from behind, and then like as he speared me, his kind of head is poking out beside me, and I'm like, well, I kind of put him in a chokehold because he was like in that position, and I'm just holding on. And at that point, like you're at the bottom of the scuffle, and there's punches thrown everywhere, and it's like, I mean, anybody can get squared up, and like there's people everywhere. It's like the most dangerous thing in the world. It's crazy. The way it should be done was the way Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez did it. That's the way it should be. It's mano y mano, and it's like you get a couple swings. If nothing happens, that's fine. But like that should be like the textbook, kind of like how they do in hockey a little bit. You let their guys let them get a couple licks in. It's because or else like you get blindsided, man. Something dangerous could happen for sure.
That's a good call. It's exactly what I thought
Yeah.
about. Hockey is like, it's coming. They give them a sec.
Everybody gives
starts
them,
to get dicey or
Yep.
they're falling or whatever, and then the rest of it gets cleared out. Yeah,
and have a beer after the game.
right. Beer after the game. with each
Exactly.
other. Yeah, and you
Like the
exchange
rugby
teeth.
guys do.
Yeah,
Yep.
exchange teeth.
There was
I have yours. It's still stuck in my knuckle here.
there was a little there was a little hate. There was a little hate in that rivalry, and I knew Banny from Pittsburgh, and I played for Gibby in Toronto, and Gibby was always like this, and Banny was like,
Yep.
"Whatever, bro. I'm in Texas, man. It gets
Yep.
really." And so that hate kind of was fueled by the managers.
And Bautista's flip, no?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where it all was. On that play alone,
Yeah.
Rougned tried to throw at Bautista's face. They had already
Yep.
they had just hit Jose, and they had waited the whole year to hit him.
It was a dirty slide. It was a dirty slide, though.
Absolutely.
So like they both had reason to be pissed off.
Oh yeah.
But the thing about Bannister, he had this saying, and he would say it in the clubhouse. He'd be like, you some people say like dig your cleats in the dirt or whatever. He'd say like, you just got to punch him in the mouth. Well, fucking, I guess Rougned fucking took that advice literally, and he fucking punched him right in the mouth, man. Like he's like, Coach, you told me to do it. Like it's an expression, Rougned. You're not supposed to actually do it, bud.
Yeah, no doubt. Last one for me. All right. And I want you to tell me what it's like because very few people know. Is there pressure to play in Toronto? Is there pressure in the sense of you signing that contract, you being Canadian born, or is it like where some places, you know what, there's just not as much pressure? Because that's how the media portrays, well, you go to Toronto and some guys, there's no pressure there. Was there pressure for you?
Like the mediatic pressure, right? Where it's, obviously when you sign a contract, you want to perform. You want to be liked. You don't want to get bad press. But at the same time, like it's I guess the short answer is yes. Just like if you're playing in New York, like it's the media's tough. The media's tough in New York. The media's tough in Toronto. But if you play well, then you're kind of glorified, and if you don't play well, you're going to get bashed. But at the same time, you expect yourself to play well. So, it depends on your perception of it, and true pressure. It's like it's not real. It's not real pressure. It's just it's just you have to deal with if you're not playing well, you're going to be in the spotlight. And that's kind of how it is. It's not like you're fighting for a meal, like, you know what I mean? That's real pressure, like, like trying to put food on the table, like when you don't have money, like that's pressure. The rest is just like, like you're gonna get a bad article about you, man. Like, like go talk to a sports psych and talk about it, how it's bothering you, and like you'll get over it. There's you know what I mean? Like it's so when people talk about pressure, it's really it's your perception. It's your perception of it. It was like what you believe it to be. Like if you believe there's pressure, then there's gonna be pressure. But at the same time, like, it's almost like it's a privilege. Like I don't know who said that, but I think it's Billie Jean or something. It's like pressure is a privilege, and it truly is, man. Like it's you earn it. It's but there are definitely some cities that are just easier to play in where you don't have that added stress of if you have a bad game or you say something like and I remember I said something in New York where I said something along the lines like, man, I hate playing Boston. And you're like, you really hate Boston? And I'm like, yeah, they're so tough. They're gritty, man. Every time it's a grind every time we play them. And then next day in the New York paper, Russell hates Boston. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me, man? Like that's what you guys get out of that. Like, and that's how they do it. You know what I mean? And that's, so that adds pressure. Like next time you go to Boston, like, well, enjoy that hostility. You're on deck. You're like, Russell, you suck. Like, yeah. They're like, all right, man. Like, appreciate it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, way to, I don't know, man.
That's what sells.
Like, it definitely, it definitely sells, and it adds, and it makes it tough for players though. So the guys that can perform in those big market teams and like in New York and Boston, LA. It's the players who don't have to deal with it don't understand how it can impact you a little bit.
One of those teams, and I'll skip the Dodgers because they did win the next year in the COVID year, but of Pittsburgh, Toronto, and I guess the Yanks, just because for them it's been a while since they won a title. When you're watching now and you can just kick back and kind of enjoy it, not feel the pressure, say whatever. Do you watch any of those three teams or follow them and go like, come on, like either rooting for them or like rooting for them to act? I mean, like I would say even act differently. Like Pittsburgh, now they're going to go through this run again, hopefully for them, right? They've been in a rebuild for a while now. Like they haven't been good since you were there. It's been a minute. And you want to see them, like all they talk about is they better freaking get us some players besides just the young dudes. Like, do you watch any of those moments, or like Toronto, like you've got talent, like let's fucking go. Like you got to win one now for the country. Do you get any of those feelings with those teams?
A little bit. You kind of follow like your ex teammates a little bit wherever they go. You kind of root for those guys. But a little bit more so I kind of always like to root for the underdog. So you always like to see like a smaller market team compete. And I feel like Pittsburgh is always, they're kind of close. They're just always missing like a couple pieces. And because they build, but when when their good players get a little they gain a couple years and they get closer to free agency, and then they're like, we can't just outright lose them to free agency. We need to get something for them. So it's like they're always playing that game of like, and they're always just like seems like just like a couple years off. Or if they make one move that doesn't work out for them, then they're set back like a couple years. They can't just like buy out it, like they can't buy themselves out of their mistakes. But like Toronto is always going to be one of my teams. I'm Canadian, right? So like I like to see Toronto do well. And now that I move on the West Coast, it's like I'm back. I'm close to Dodger territory, so I do want to see the Dodgers play good. But yeah, for short answer is just the guys who I played with. If I see, no matter where they go, you just like to see those guys play well.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Well, dude, it was awesome reminiscing and catching up with you. You look great. I'm sure you could still, strap him up and play like no big deal, right?
Yeah, he looks definitely like he could. Could you do it? You feel the body feel good to go? No?
Oof.
Too many miles?
You're feeling it?
the right knee. I think I need a little scope action on the right knee. But I haven't. I mean, I do feel pretty good, but like I think I could do it for like maybe a couple weeks. There's that 162 though. You forget about that 162. You're like, I can still throw whatever. Yeah, right. Dude. You got 6 months in you, and like, no, I don't have 6 months in me, and there's no way. But like, just strap it on and play against the Savannah Bananas. I can do that.
That you can pull off.
Like for what?
Yeah,
I could probably pull that off.
Well, dude, it's great catching up with you. Thanks to the Players Alumni Association for setting up these combos. For more info on your favorite former players, hit up baseballalumni.com. And Russell, really good to see you, man. Enjoy retired life, and would love to do it again sometime.
For sure. All right, boys, have a good one.